of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC 010 titled Managerial Economics for MBA Program. Presenting Block 2 titled Demand and Revenue Analysis. Unit 5 Demand Elasticity.
Objectives. After studying this unit, you should be able to understand the concept of elasticity, define various kinds of elasticities, apply the various measures of elasticity to real-world situations. Introduction. In the previous unit, we studied that when price falls, quantity demanded would increase. While we know this qualitative effect exists for most goods and services, managers and business analysts are often more interested in knowing the magnitude of the response to a price change, that is, by how much. There are many situations in which one might want to measure how sensitive the quantity demanded is to changes in a product's price. Economists and other business analysts are frequently concerned with the responsiveness of one variable to changes in some other variable. It is useful to know, for example, what effect a given percentage change in price would have on sales. The most widely adopted measure of responsiveness is elasticity. Elasticity is a general concept that economists, business people, and government officials rely on for such measurement. For example, the finance minister might be interested in knowing whether decreasing tax rates would increase tax revenue. Likewise, it is often useful to measure the sensitivity of changes in demand to changes in one of the determinants of demand, such as income or advertising. Elasticity is defined as the ratio of the percentage change in quantity demanded to the percentage change in some other factor, such as price or income, that stimulates the change in quantity. The reason for using percentage change is that it obviates the need to know the units in which quantity and price are measured. For example, quantity could be in kilograms, grams, liters, or gallons, and price could be in dollars, rupees, euro, etc. A measure of elasticity based on units would lead to confusion and misleading comparisons across different products. The use of percentage change makes the measure of elasticity independent of units of measurement and hence easy to understand. Elasticity is the percentage change in some dependent variable given a 1% change in an independent variable. Ceteris paribus. If we let y represent the dependent variable, x is the independent variable, and E the elasticity, then elasticity is represented as E is equals to percentage change in y divided by percentage change in x. Although economists use a great variety of elasticities, the following three deserve particular attention because of their wide application in the business world: price elasticity, income elasticity, and cross-price elasticity. We will discuss these in detail in the subsequent sections. The price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of the quantity sold to changes in the product's price, ceteris paribus. It is the percentage change in sales divided by a percentage change in price. The notation capital E small p will be used for the arc price elasticity of demand, and small e and small p will be used for the point price elasticity of demand. If the absolute value of capital E small p is greater than 1, a given percentage decrease or increase in price will result in an even greater percentage increase or decrease in sales. In such case, the demand for the product is considered elastic, that is, sales are relatively response to price changes. Therefore, the percentage change in quantity demanded will be greater than the percentage change in the price. When the absolute value of the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, the percentage change in sales is less than a given percentage change in price. demand is then said to be inelastic with respect to price. Unitary price elasticity results when a given percentage change in price results in an equal percentage change in sales. The absolute value of the coefficient of price elasticity is equal to 1 in such cases. These relationships are summarized as if small e small p or capital E small p greater than 1, demand is elastic. If small e small p or capital E small p is less than 1, demand is inelastic. If small e small p or capital E small p is equals to 1, demand is unitarily elastic. Point price elasticity. The price elasticity of demand may, and usually does, vary along any demand function, depending on the portion of the function for which the elasticity is calculated. It follows that we usually cannot make such statements as the demand for product X is elastic, because it is likely to be elastic for one range of prices and inelastic for another. Usually at high prices, demand is elastic, while at lower prices, demand tends to be inelastic. Intuitively, this is so because lowering price from very high levels is likely to stimulate demand much more compared to lowering prices when price is already low. As an illustration, consider the prices of cellular phones when these were first introduced in the Indian market at prices ranging between 25,000 to 30,000 rupees per handset. Demand was limited to the higher end of the market. As these prices fell, demand was stimulated and resulted in increasing penetration in the middle and lower end segments, indicating an elastic response. Price elasticity and revenue. We have defined demand to be elastic when the absolute value of the price elasticity is greater than 1. For that to be true, the percentage change in quantity must be greater than the percentage change in price. Brackets, percentage change in Q greater than percentage change in P. Brackets close. If this were true, what would you expect to happen to a firm's receipts if the price were lowered? Recall from principles of economics that total revenue, TR, is equals to price, P times quantity, Q. The price change will then be the dominant one of the two changes, and the revenue will change in the same direction as the price change. If, however, elasticity exceeds unity, elastic, the percentage change in quantity will exceed the percentage change in price. The percentage change in quantity will be the more important change, so that total expenditure will change in the opposite direction as the price change. These results can be summarized as follows. Elastic demand: 1. Decrease price, increase total revenue. 2. Increase price, decrease total revenue. Price and total revenue move in opposite directions. In elastic demand: 1. Decrease price, decrease total revenue. 2. Increase price, increase total revenue. Price and total revenue move in the same direction. If a demand function has a unitary elasticity, then the same level of revenue will be generated regardless of price. You see that for a linear demand function, as price falls, demand becomes less elastic or more inelastic. You have also seen that when demand is elastic, price cuts are associated with increases in total revenue. But if price continues to be lowered in the range in which demand is inelastic, total revenue will fall. Thus, total revenue will be maximized at the price and related quantity at which demand is unitarily elastic. If marginal revenue is 0, a price change would have no effect on total revenue. In contrast, if demand is elastic, say small e small p is equals to -2, marginal revenue will be greater than 0. This implies that a price reduction by stimulating a considerable increase in demand would increase total revenue. This equation also implies that if demand is inelastic, say small e small p is equals to -0.5, marginal revenue is negative, indicating that a price reduction would decrease total revenue. Some analysts question the usefulness of elasticity estimates. They argue that elasticities are redundant such that the data necessary for their determination could be used to determine total revenues directly. Thus, managers could assess the effects of a change in price without knowledge of price elasticity. Although this is true, elasticity estimates are valuable to the extent that they provide a quick way of evaluating pricing policies. For example, if demand is known to be elastic, it is also known that a price increase will reduce total revenues. Determinants of price elasticity. Price elasticities can be estimated for many goods and services. The short-run elasticities reflect periods of time that are not long enough for the consumer to adjust completely to changes in prices. The long-run values refer to situations where consumers have had more time to adjust. Demand for inelastic in the short run, but elastic in the long run. In general, three factors determine the price elasticity of demand. They are 1. Availability of substitutes. The main determinant of elasticity is the availability of substitutes. Products for which there are good substitutes tend to have higher price elasticity of demand than products for which there are few adequate substitutes. Movies are a good example. Movies are a form of recreation, but there are many alternative recreational activities. When ticket prices at the movie theatre increase, these substitute activities replace movies. Other examples of products with close substitutes and therefore elastic demand would be demand for cars, demand for smartphones, demand for air travel, etc. At the other extreme, consider the short-run demand for electricity. When your local supplier increases prices, consumers have few options. There are not many short-run alternatives to using electricity for cooling and lighting. Hence, the short-run demand for electricity is relatively inelastic. In the days of the License Raj in India, when the government was the monopoly provider, demand for telecom services was relatively inelastic since there was no other service provider in the market. Thus, a product with close substitutes tends to have elastic demand. One with no close substitutes tend to have inelastic demand. An important mission for most advertising is to make the consumer perceive that no close substitute exists for the product being advertised, thereby rendering the consumer's demand relatively inelastic. 2. Proportion of income spent. Demand tends to be inelastic for goods and services that account for only a small proportion of total expenditures. Consider the demand for salt. 1 kilo of salt will meet the need of the typical household for a month and costs only a few rupees. If the price of salt were to double, this change would not have a significant impact on the family's purchasing power. Price changes have little effect on the household demand for salt. In contrast, demand will tend to be more elastic for goods and services that require a substantial portion of total expenditures. Thus, demand for holiday travel and luxury cars take up a considerable portion of the family's budget and therefore tend to have higher elasticities. The relative necessity of a good also influences elasticity. For example, the demand for insulin is probably very inelastic because it is necessary for diabetics who rely on this drug. 3. Time period. Demand is usually more elastic in the long run than in the short run. The explanation is that, given more time, the consumer has more opportunities to adjust to changes in prices. Price elasticity and decision making. Information about price elasticities can be extremely useful to managers as they contemplate pricing decisions. If demand is inelastic at the current price, a price decrease will result in a decrease in total revenue. Alternatively, reducing the price of a product with elastic demand would cause revenue to increase. The effect on total revenue would be the reverse for a price increase. However, if demand is unitary elastic, price changes will not change total revenues. However, a price reduction is not always the correct strategy when demand is elastic. The decision must also take into account the impact on the firm's costs and profits. Income elasticity of demand. The income elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of sales to change in income, ceteris paribus. It is defined as the percentage change in sales divided by the corresponding percentage change in income. Given the information on sales and income, the calculation of income elasticities is strictly analogous to the calculation of price elasticities. If the income elasticity of demand for a product is greater than 1, the product is said to be income elastic. If it is less than 1, the product is income inelastic. For normal goods, the income elasticity is greater than 0 because with rising incomes, consumers will purchase a greater quantity of such goods, ceteris paribus. If the income elasticity for a commodity is negative, the good is an inferior good. That is, people will choose to purchase less of the product when their income increases. Potatoes may represent examples of inferior goods for some households, as would purchasers from the cheap stores. The reason is that some households consume certain goods only because of lack of purchasing power. As income increases, it is possible the household will shift away from the purchase of these inferior goods. Income elasticity relationships can be summarized as normal goods are indicated by small e1 or capital E1 greater than 0. Inferior goods are indicated by small e1 or capital E1 less than 0. If capital E1 or small e1 is greater than 1, the good is income elastic. If capital E1 or small e1 is less than 1, the good is income inelastic. If capital E1 or small e1 is equals to 1, the good is unitarily income elastic. Cross-price elasticity. The sales volume of one product may be influenced by the price of either substitute or complementary products. Cross-price elasticity of demand provides a means to quantify that type of influence. It is defined as the ratio of the percentage change in sales of one product to the percentage change in price of another product. A negative coefficient of cross-price elasticity implies that a decrease in the price of product A results in an increase in sales of product B, or vice versa. We can conclude that the products are complementary to one another, such as cassette tape players and cassette tapes. Thus, when the coefficient of cross-price elasticity for two products is negative, the products are classified as complements. A similar line of reasoning leads to the conclusion that if the cross-price elasticity is positive, the products are substitutes. For example, an increase in the price of sugar would cause less sugar to be purchased, but would increase the sale of sugar substitutes. When we calculate the cross-price elasticity for this case, both the numerator and the denominator, percentage change in Q of sugar substitutes and percentage change in P of sugar, respectively, would have the same sign and the coefficient would be positive. If two goods are unrelated, a change in the price of one will not affect the sales of the other. The numerator of the cross-price elasticity ratio would be 0 and thus the coefficient of cross-price elasticity would be 0. In this case, the two commodities would be defined as independent. These relationships can be summarized as if small e small c or capital E small c greater than 0, goods are substitutes. If small e small c or capital E small c less than 0, goods are complementary. If small e small c or capital E small c is equals to 0, goods are independent. Cross-price elasticities may not always be symmetrical. For example, consider two dailies, LOI and the HOI, competing in Delhi market. Most analysts will agree that the two products are substitutes, that is, the cross-price elasticity is positive. However, there is no reason to believe that the change in demand for the LOI following a 1% change in the price of HOI will be equal to the change in demand for HOI following a 1% change in the price of the LOI. Many large corporations produce several related products. Automobile companies produces many varieties of automobiles, detergent company produces many brands of soap, and razor companies produces many types of razors. If automobile company reduces the price of its A model, sales of its related S model may decline. When a company sells related products, knowledge of cross-elasticity can aid decision makers in assessing such impacts. The effect of advertising on demand. Advertising influences our attitudes towards the product or service being promoted. In most cases, the intent of a firm's advertising is to stimulate sales of a particular product or product line. When Pepsi-Cola Corporation decides to sponsor a television show or cricket match, it hopes that doing so will increase the sales of its products. Such product promotions have their impact on consumers through tastes and preferences. In addition to shifting the demand function to the right, advertising may have the effect of making it somewhat more steep. The reason for this is that advertisements can create stronger consumer brand preferences, thus making consumers less sensitive to price changes for that product. This means that one effect of advertising can be to make the demand for a firm's product more price inelastic. To the extent that this is true, management has an increased ability to raise price without losing as many sales as would have been lost otherwise. We have seen that raising the product's price will increase the total revenue for the firm if demand is inelastic. Summary. The concept of elasticity is simply the slope relationship of two variables expressed in percentage terms. This makes elasticity independent of the units and magnitudes of the two variables in question. Price elasticity is an important determinant of the price firms will charge for their product. This is because price elasticity is related to the firm's marginal revenue function determining the effect on total revenue of a change in price. When demand is price elastic, lowering price will increase total revenue, and when demand is inelastic, lowering price will decrease total revenue. The reverse is true for increase in price. When demand is price elastic, increasing price will decrease total revenue, and when demand is inelastic, increasing price will increase total revenue. The main determinant of price elasticity of demand is the availability of substitutes for the product. Any one of a group of close substitutes will have a more elastic demand than the group as a whole. Elasticity will be low if the proportion of income spent on the product is small. Elasticity tends to be greater the longer the time over which adjustment occurs. Items that have few substitutes in the short run may develop substitutes when the consumers and producers have time to adapt. Income elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded as a result of a percentage change in income. Income elasticity will usually change as income varies. Cross elasticity is the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the price of some other product that brought it about. It is used to define products that are substitutes for one another, positive cross elasticity, and products that complement one another, negative elasticity.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC 010, titled Managerial Economics. Course coordinator Dr. Leena Singh. Voiceover by Renuka. Edited by Savita. Program assisted by Tarannum Jahan. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.